You want these? See this here, we're not doing a wedding down in Auckland. When you do weddings, you've got to keep your eyes open.
Yes.
And this one here, this girl, it was while the breakfast was on, and she went up to the bride, talking there. The bride put her hat on this girl, and I was down the other end of the hall, you see. There's the tables here. And yeah, this girl worked up there, so I got ready. I knew there was a photo there. And this little one out here, she come out and just put her arm just up round there, just automatically. I couldn't have set it up better. Bang! You've got to be right ready to shoot.
You've got to be ready to shoot.
Going to shoot for Sheep World years ago. And we had to photograph this girl with her hair. And this cart come down and said, hey, I want some too.
Kodak moment, they used to call them.
Yeah,
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh wow, these are cool.
Oh yeah.
Probably when I was working for Kodak.
Look at the phone number on the bottom.
I was really good working.
23.
Never wanted to.
Yeah,
Oh, 25223.
And later on I went for work for Hammocks.
This would be used cards we used to this year. You go out and take your photos at the shows, and then it was numbered, they post the card in.
In the country came that day,
Now, hang on.
came Fuji colour film. And we opened it up, put it in my camera, and I got the first roll of Fuji colour film and it was working.
Your phone number? It's
That's
5
yeah.
Yeah.
No, we double
How's that?
okay.
Yeah. I remember the party line. Everyone would pick up the phone. We've talked about it. Everyone would pick up the phone no matter what it rang.
Oh, my mother was the worst.
Yeah, and everyone would chime in to correct people.
Oh yeah.
Like, right. So,
I
Rupert,
made my own printing box for printing out.
did you?
Put a glass top in it, masked it all except the strip, pulled the film across, light at the bottom, switch the quote on, 1 second.
I used to photograph through the
just came
negative.
through the glass, and then you slide the film along and just move the paper up. Well, that hasn't got it.
So you took a negative
That's
of
how
a
we did all the
negative
proof sheets.
to get a
There's
positive.
hundreds of those.
So what is
Oh,
the official
dear.
start time then, Colin?
7.
I didn't bring it in
Not
with
half
me.
past 6.
It was half 6 for training, but I'm just too busy.
Oh, okay. So you were right, Alan.
Well, I've done it thing.
Yeah. You were wrong, Laurie.
I can't hear you.
For the record.
I'm Alan.
Hmm?
I'm Alan.
Who?
Alan.
There was my hearing shocking. Yeah. You know, that stuff there.
Yeah.
Look at.
Alan.
Yeah.
I'm Jenny.
Hmm?
Jenny.
Jenny.
That's right,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, some frequencies is better than others.
I know a lot of these photos. It's
Yeah,
great.
I brought those over. This.
This?
Yeah, the old barn. Yeah.
They're sitting down.
That's a negative.
See these night photos?
Oh, yes.
I had a, well, you printed them over there, but I had a method of doing that,
Yes.
and I'm sending a set of those down to the Memories magazine, so when Gwen goes,
Yes.
she can put this in as a memorial for her. Yeah.
Thank you, Don. Looking good.
Alright, don't point that out. Oh dear, oh dear.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very
Oh, we've got
good.
a heater going there, haven't you?
There's 2 heaters. Yeah, so Don's going to come and do a presentation and he'll show us his photos and talk about his life. He's a real photographer, not like his whole career. He's done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of weddings. And so you'll see some photos of Don here.
Oh, wow.
Looks like
A bit of Welsford show, probably.
That photo's got me in it. The girl working for me took that, and if you look at it, you'll see I've got holding it like a camera and a batch of cards in my hand. So when we took the photo of somebody, we'd go over, give them that card, and it was numbered,
Yes.
and they could post it in and get the right one. We sold hundreds of those like that. You know, it was all after wall sort of click there, and you know, we got out of World War II, and people didn't get any put as much all that time because you couldn't buy film.
True.
You know, the Warkworth people took it all. Those pipeline ones, they went through what was my farm.
Oh,
But I'd sold the land a couple of years before it happened. So I went round with a camera and took a whole lot of stuff, and I sold a whole lot of paradigms about people were putting it in. Vico Holdings, they printed those big ones, and they laminated the prints, and then mounted them on that hardboard for me. So they've been, just been stored for time.
Yeah, that's good. I think all the more fire.
Oh, you've got a good old shed over there, eh?
Pressure test it.
Where do you think you're going to go?
Got a chair, will do.
A longer arms than
Stand on it. And then you could be here with that as a table, is that right?
Yep. Too much chocolate, see.
Oh, that's what Cherie said. I couldn't even remember chocolate because we got it like a month ago.
Oh, is it?
And it just went like this.
Oh,
Any chocolate that comes in is just
Well done.
divided, yeah. It's the 40 years I really want to get to. Yeah, so there's a spear on the left. So Don will do a presentation, but he probably won't judge.
oh, okay.
So I'll probably take Don after his
Okay,
presentation.
what's that? That's,
They'd send the cards in,
Are you good?
2 shillings and 6 pence.
it was set up when I
Again,
was
for 6 by 4.
Yeah.
I've
Might
some
work.
sleep moments.
Yes.
Should be able to, oh,
That's just an odd sheet.
that's in my head,
I actually might use do that. Have I got one or have you got it?
Pass it around.
So we
Yeah.
want to do talk first.
Oh, definitely. Don
Yep.
probably won't judge. But he might take to it, so we'll just give him the opportunity. So, I think probably he'll do his presentation and we might show him the photos and then we'll go and then if you take over and have an HDMI code. But we'll just play it by ear. You're actually an HDMI 2 to be done because I can see it.
So it's just it's just
Cool.
Solid stuff. It's really consolidated. No, well,
Adjusted it.
hooked on to doing a Windows
I've been meaning to adjust it.
Keeps the negatives and gives those
as a proof.
so they can shoot.
Okay. That's on the computer. Be a quick drive home, wouldn't it,
Just these numbering things.
Oh, yeah,
Confusing,
yeah.
eh?
So he actually did some damage.
There's a sort of stuck in the mud.
I got to go out and write the Julie.
Oh, well, I used to watch those. That's a computer, I would say, demonstration. That's a looks like how it's Java, so that's a stuff. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
And now I've got it up and running.
I've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel called The Last Camera Shot. True. And I thought you want to add little bonus bits in there. And I thought, well, this is a good bonus bit. Oh my goodness! Who's this man you brought with you? Yeah, yeah.
I realised he was responsible.
You picked the right night.
Or is it in focus?
Yeah, that'll give it away.
It's more about.
I know, that's the thing. You see it on your own screen and you think it looks okay, but then when it comes up there, like one of my last ones,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. Yeah. And I've got that fear with one of mine tonight, actually.
Makes you look at things.
Yes, doesn't it? But I had a brilliant idea, but I couldn't get it together, unfortunately. You know the one I told you about?
I can't remember it.
I wanted to find a whole pile of leaves.
Oh yes, that's right.
But then I had the idea of an old lady or something throwing the leaves up in the air. But in between the times of thinking of that, all the leaves fell. Then it rained and they became soggy. And then I couldn't find any wood that were good colours, so I didn't do it.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's good here. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's just a camera recommended. It's just hard nowadays when you recommend stuff. They're like, okay, I go to research. It's like, that's not why I recommend it. I recommend it because it is the best one for what we talked about. Yeah, so there it is.
Are you going to tell us how to do the ones for this month? Next month?
What's next month? Is that
Oh, that funny thing.
Bokeh.
Bokeh, whatever that is.
Bokeh. Bokeh is Japanese for good blur.
I'll probably confused.
Welcome all.
I've got a brand new one, which I haven't.
New people, old people. So we're just having a chat over here about photography, and Vivian was talking about how she used to, before the photo club, she used to love taking photos. Not that she doesn't still enjoy it. But I've been shooting film myself, so all my entries that I put in tonight, I shot on a Mamiya, which is a camera that Don has used. We'll talk about Don in a moment. So I'm using an old 35 film Mamiya. I was so pleased with my film, and I had no light meter. I was like, I got no battery, and I should know. So I just ran it manual. So manual aperture, manual shutter, and you just guess the exposure basically. And I was very, very happy. There's only one shot that was a bit over, and a bit of movements because the sheep were running. I mean, what do? You take the shot anyway. But I've got 10 entries that I've entered from that one film over the next 3 months. So do that. And I really, really enjoyed shooting a film. And I'm not saying you should go out and shoot film, but it was the looking through the viewfinder and the focusing, and you can see it, and it's just looking for something to take photos of. It just takes you on a little journey, you know. It was really, really neat. And so we've got Don Worsnop here tonight. So Don Worsnop is a real photographer who did it for his whole career. He was a farmer as well, but he's done hundreds and hundreds of weddings. He's used Mamiya, Leica, Bronica, Nikomat, Konica, all the real cameras. He's brought along one of his cameras today. And this is a Kodak actually, so I'm not sure if he used... Did you use this for film work?
Oh yeah. You want
Yes.
to be talking like that?
Don Worsnop.
Yep. Now, before I start, I can talk. I hope you can all hear me, but I'm afraid I've got virtually nil hearing, so it's no good trying to talk to me. So if you want to ask questions, if you can answer that,
Yep.
and then I'll tell you and you can let it out. Okay? This I brought along, just the one camera. It's not one that I used. I want to give you a bit of an outline how photography started before around about 1800. Now, in those days, they had these great big plate cameras, and you pulled a blanket over yourself and that to see on the screen to set the photo up, and then they'd take the photo, but they only had wet plates. Any of you seen here plate cameras? Yeah, okay, and you have dark slides. Yeah, I burnt one here, but it's not the... This is a dark slide, but it's ones that I used later for the later cameras. That's your film inside there, see? And you pull that out, put it on the back of the camera and take the photo, push that down, turn it over, pull the other one out, and you've got two photos there. Okay? So that camera, in that photo of me with that Lindholm camera, I bought that in 1953. It cost me £360 then. And it had 3 lenses, interchangeable, and when you changed each lens, you changed the focusing cam for the auto, for the focusing, and it had a wide angle and a normal and a telephoto lens, and that cost me £360 back in 1953. Yep, and it had 2 roll filmers on the back, and it had 6 dark slides like that one, but they're a bit smaller. That took 120 film, and I used that an awful lot, and I only had it a few days, and the old present Queen came through Welsford and Warkworth, and I was standing up on top of a 4-gallon drum, and I just watched it come down, and they had it all set bang. And I got a lovely one of the car, but I could see it got a face, but only just. This here is across Crangahappy Road, and that's the Auckland Town Hall. And I walked right out in the middle of the road on a Sunday evening after dark, and I knew what exposure was for it. I didn't have to, because that was no metering then, and it was 1 second at a certain aperture, and I set it up. If you have a look at it later on, you'll see the tram lines in the middle of Crangahappy Road there, and I had the tripod and that camera sitting on it there, took the photo and just walked away. So I'm sending 2 of those photos to the Memories magazine, because I've had photos done there for the lady there, and when our present Queen fades away one day, I guess, she might be able to put those in the Memories magazine, you know, just to get nice photos. Be a nice way to remember our Queen. Yeah. So those, Colin's just printed those ones recently.
What else would you like to talk to?
I passed it around. You can pass them around at the door.
Pass this one around. You want to talk to this?
Oh, hang on, before I start with that one.
Yes.
This is myself in my original darkroom with a German-made Lights Enlarger, which cost me £160 in about 1958, I think it was, 59. So you can just slide it around here. Now, what do we see? What I wanted to do was I really wanted to get on light.
Light? You got these ones?
Yeah, okay, I've got to talk about this. There's a piece of paper here with an old log. And I went round the Welsford railway yards looking for stuff to get photos, you know, for camera club. And I come across a heap of logs, and I found that there, and somebody had used a short chainsaw, and they had to cut it from both sides, so you've got a hang of a lot of saw cuts there. And what I'm trying to point out in it is that photography needs light, and it's only light on your emulsions where you can get these photos. But one of the things that's taught me when I was doing early photography was when I saw anything that looked might be a photo, I could look at it and think, well, right, I can make a photograph of that with the light in a certain angle at a certain time of the day. And that's how I worked with a lot of my outside stuff. And that is one of the main principles landscape photographers use. You've seen good landscape photos with the sun low in the sky and the rolling of the hills and cattle and sheep on them. And that's how they got those lovely photos. They'd see them. I've found places when I'm in travelling. I used to go to Auckland a lot about the Whangarei. And with some of my work, when the farming days, I drove hay balers for several years.
Yeah.
This was when I was doing a shoot for Sheep World for a new brochure, sales brochure. And I had to take a photo of this girl feeding a lamb. And we went out in this park place. Next thing we found this big car come down here, tucked his head round here. Yeah, I'd like some too. So, you know, if you got your wits about you and look round and you've got a camera handy, you know how to use it.
Sweet. Yeah.
Now this one here also goes back to my job days when I was working with the tractors and balers. I had a camera with me and I noticed that I was on the Tongue Farm doing a job out Metacana there, and I went up towards the river there and I thought, that's a lovely photo across there, you see. So I took the camera one day, and just I wanted about midday, 1 o'clock light, and that's what I got. Okay, now the other thing with this photo, that was black and white, and it was done on my first camera, not the one up there, and I chose the lighting for it, and when I printed it, it was black and white, and the Rodney Times published it on their front page soon afterwards, and then that's been hand coloured, so it was done on a black and white paper. Okay. Now in those days, some of you, the older ones, have probably seen the old sepia tone photos that perhaps your grandparents had and that sort of thing. When I started going to wedding photos again a few years ago, now and again I'd see them, but after a few years they just disappeared. People died and they haven't gone. But those sepia tone photos lasted better than the others. Now that was printed on a proper paper for sepia toning, and I got a lady from out Metacana. Her maiden name was Franklin, and I can't remember what her married name is. Maureen was her first name, if anybody happened to mind out who it was. And she was very good at colouring these black and white photos. Now what you do when you're painting these trees here, you get your little sticks, like toothpicks, and you get a bit of cotton wool on it, and you use oil colours on a plate, just a bit, and you rub it over all the green, so you can put the same green oil all over those trees, and they'll all come up with their different colours of green automatically. So you don't have to fiddle around with soft paint, it's just an oil, and you just swab it on, and of course they'd use a different colour down here on the water. And she got the tonal range. She lived in the district, she got that tonal range through there. And that boat there, John, belonged to Dave Jones from Matacana. And he had a cattle out on the big barrier, and he used to go over in the boat to look after them. So that's how that camera photo was done. And I have hand coloured some myself too, and it's very easy, it's quite easy, relatively cheap too. But you've got to sepia tone the photo first, and we can't do that with the new papers, unfortunately.
Paints as well.
Yeah, I didn't use this one, did I? No.
No, not good.
Here's another one that I've got. I was doing a wedding down in Auckland, and while the reception was on, people were fitting their faces, this girl here went up to the bridal table, and I was down the other end sort of waiting for cutting of the cake and things like that. And the bigger girl, she come walking down the aisle. So I was standing at the end of the aisle, and I had the camera in my hand with a flash unit on it, and I thought, oh, she'd put the bride's hat on, you see. So this is that, and she got nearly up to here, and this little girl walked out there and put her arm right up underneath there, and I couldn't have set it up better. And I just stooped there, bang, and that got it. You just catch those things. You've got to keep your eyes open.
Oh, it's the same.
Yeah.
This is one where you did a lot of too.
In the background.
One of those gimmick ones. Some of you have probably seen them. We can't do it with the digital out cameras, although I have got a way, I think, of doing it. But nobody's been able to follow us to do it there. So what we did, when the people saw these, most of the weddings I did this for, and what I had to do was take the bride and groom head and shoulders, as you see on here, and that would be right in the middle of the film. And we'd take the back of the camera off, which had roll film holders, you could take them off, and then we take that home when we go, and that roll of film wasn't used. Then, after the weekend, what I had to do, I set up a background here, and the candle, and then the glass here, that's filled with weak tea, so that when I put this part of the negative on there, the glass doesn't take you, don't get it put through it. Okay? So that's what that's for, and I did a lot of those, so people loved them, you know. Anyway.
Cheap now, yeah.
What does the tea do?
Otherwise, because that's one negative, two photos, and so they wouldn't show up unless there was something for them to be exposed on.
Now I had a studio in my own house there for a long time, and this one here is one of my pick photos for portraiture. It's a local couple, and one of the relations, this daughter was playing the violin, and they wanted a photo of her with the violin. Now this is a very complex system of photography, because I had a white paper background which hangs from the wall and goes behind them. They were sitting on a table with white across here, and the lighting was studio lighting, and we used 2 studio lights facing it like that, one each side, and then behind that paper we had behind the subject we had another powerful light, and you put a very high volume of light on the white paper. So when you do these ones here, they come out correct. So you've got to use a flash meter to measure the amount of light that's going on here, and then you put one f-stop behind on the paper, and that's separated. They wanted a photo of her with a violin, and I thought about it, and I thought, well, I'll do a single one with a playing her, see? So that's done into black and white film, and of course I had a camera with interchangeable backs. So I did the black and white one, and then I did this one afterwards and just changed the back on the camera and did the colour one. Here you are, here's the waterfalls up at Nangaroo, up in Whangarei. Open, yeah, oh yes, open for it. Yeah, that's right.
It's a photo club entry.
Yeah, it's in the open competitions, and yeah. So with that, we used about 1/8 of a second exposure at a certain aperture, and I like to control the thing with a fairly slow shutter speed, probably 1/8 or a 15th of a second, 1/8 or quarter, and the camera on a tripod. And when you look at it, you look at all the little fine bits of water that are coming down in various places, and you've got to get the exposure developing and printing. That was done on black and white film. My own processing of the film too, and printing. This one is a little bit heavier around. Used to be a barn just this side of Welsford, just on the road there years ago, and it gradually decayed, and I took a lot of photos of it, and I missed bringing one over, taken with a low light, and that when it was all orange on here, so I missed that one. But I took this one here, and what I've done is I have made a negative print. In other words, I photographed the other original negative, the first one, and that gave me a negative print. So that's why, when you do those photos, it'd be dark in there and all in here, all in there, it'd be dark. But by making it a negative print, I've changed all that back to white, and you've got the skeleton of the bone.
It's quite heavy.
It looks like a pencil painting, doesn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I see.
This is one when I experimented with a Leica camera and a telephoto lens, and there's lots of bloke doing some welding on some machinery in a workshop up in Wellsford there. So one night when I knew he was working at night, I took my Leica camera up with telephoto lens, set it on a tripod, and I gave it a 1 second exposure with it. I can't remember what the aperture was now, but he was electric welding in behind that dark piece there. See that dark piece? The electric welding arc of it is down there. If you've got the arc of it above it, it'll just wipe it out. You see? So that's how it... So all these bits are here are all the little bubbly things that fly off the metal while you're welding.
Wow, that's almost what we're talking about with the...
Yeah, there we go.
What is the type of photograph we're going to take that?
Oh, it's a bit capital,
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, the movement of the light. No, not
This one I had one of my little grandsons,
Very good.
and this was done the same as that other one with a little girl in it, and a white background, and this is a pet basket, and it'll very, very good to help for little kids to sit still, not fall down. So yeah, you can pass that around.
You've got the wedding one here. I don't know if you want to talk to that.
Oh, better not pass around.
Yeah, we won't pass it around.
That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, we could just hold it
They
up.
can have a look at it. That's one of the brides that I did in Latin some years ago.
Yeah.
These ones here, there's 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
oh yeah, 4. This one here is the pipes laid out, ready for putting in that trench. And that was part of my farm before I sold it a couple of years earlier. And I went round with a camera, and that oil and gas pipeline that came in from the east of, between Kaiwaka and Mangawai, and then over the Wangaripo Road and came through the Waby Flats and crosses underneath Highway 1, just a few chain this side of the Hokia River. Now, that's a photo that I took from up near my house, and this is hand shell. There you are.
Wow.
You may better have a look at those ones down below, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now there's 2 of them here with electric welding. This is welding the joints in the 10-inch pipe. It was a 10-inch pipe, and they had to be specially cut so that the weld would fill a groove, and I photographed that handheld there, and they're working on top of the ground there, and this other one, same team, and they were standing in water there and doing the welding, and the power for the welder, and you'll see there's a grinder here, see? For grinding joints and things like that. And that power for that came from the Lincoln welder and a power sockets that had to run power tools, you see. And here they are standing in water, and there's a power tool there. And when I showed it to some people, I wondered whether you could do it. Now that was Peridines when they put that through, and I sold quite a few of these photos to them too, although they had a professional photographer going through every so many 6 weeks or something, and I picked up a lot of stuff that they missed, you see, and I got some of those. These have been printed by Vico years ago, and they had the facilities for building. These were taken on a negative only that wide and that long, and all handheld shots. So there's fairly good stuff on them. Yeah, so
No, very good.
that's gone through it then, hasn't it?
I think that's pretty good, Don. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Don, this here,
Oh,
we're actually presenting this to you. This is from the Warkworth Photo Club. We printed this, and this is for you.
Yeah, it's his printing too. I guess.
Thank you very much.
I've seen a lot of my work go through there. This is one grab shot I took when I was over in Sydney some years ago, and we're still using black and white film for weddings, and I bought a new Konica camera and I wanted to try it out. I got it wholesale duty free. Went over to Sydney at a time over there. This is an old steam engine there. It was in a park, and if you look very carefully you find there's very fine detail in all that for 35mm film that I processed. Now there's one thing I've forgotten to bring over, because when I'm doing all this stuff, apart from the colour work, I did all the black and white processing myself. And we had tanks that deep, that round, and we had spirals to wind the film into. Well, that's a wedding up at Matakoe, and that was a check-up. We checked that up with the bride and groom because we knew what car they was using. We checked that up in the park up at Matakoe. Did a few of those. Managed to get the doll here, modelled bride there, with a tree trunk behind it, so she showed up. Here again, it's those things where you got to look at light. What's about covered it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. Do you want to have a look at the photos? We'll play them through and you can just have a seat and watch?
Yeah, okay.
Yep, have a seat.
I don't think I've
What's
done
the
enough talking
wedding
now.
one, Colin?
He just doesn't want to pass it around.
No,
It's just one of his photos that he's done.
right.
Yeah.
From Kaiwaka.
Skywalker. Yeah. I'll bring it up here.
Get this going.
Yeah, check it out. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't move it much.
Can we move it out from the...
Maybe.
While she's setting that up, I'll just show you this quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I'm doing a sale job here for Jenny.
Don't be too good, I'll have to hire you.
Hey?
That's right. You're right.
You know Jenny that's been here, she's selling this lot. It's a hell of a bargain, if I do say so myself.
Oh. You
It's
want?
a Canon
Oh, hang on.
5D Mark II in here.
Is that the one you just recently?
Yep, she's only just bought it and she decided it's all just too heavy for her, she's not using it. So
Wow.
she bought it off Renata. She's hardly used it at all. That's a Hoya filter, polarizing filter that's going with it. In here she's got a 100-400 lens, new.
Wow.
That's moving down.
Oh.
It's all moving and I thought
Everything else that goes with it. It's,
No, it's not.
no, they've got everyone and everything. If
I know.
anyone's interested in
I know it's a
it,
bit funny, it's done it before.
it's a hell of a bargain.
What does she want for it?
So
Because the lens is
the
worth a
camera, I
fortune.
know the lens alone is
Yeah.
2,700 or something, just that.
Yeah.
The bag with the camera in it, she's got remote, she's got the polarizing lens, just all of that stuff, and the EF 24 to 70mm f2.8 da is 2,375, and the bag goes with it, with all of the bits, everything. The Canon, this lens here is 1,850. The camera bag
Yes,
with
took from
everything
stationery.
goes,
Yes, just.
so if you buy the kit, you get the bag, is everything is
Yeah, I
right.
thought I'd gone funny.
You buy the whole lot.
I must have moving a bit
If anyone's
more.
interested, yell out, I'll give you the phone number. Alright?
Oh, yeah, right.
Absolute deal.
How much is the 100, 400?
One, eight,
That's what seats.
the 100, 400 is 1850.
Yeah, that's a good lens. I mean, so it's a 24/7.
So is the price.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go, I've done my sales talk.
So she's still taking photos or not?
She's pretty busy at present, she's having a bit of a rest, but yeah, she's got her other camera. She's just, so her husband has always carried her cameras and stuff around with her.
That's right, yeah.
And, you know, it's all just too, and I think the difference is she's really
Select them all
visual.
and you
So
want
she
to do
doesn't like the
the
fact
quick
that
run
the
through
camera
option.
shows
You can just go
what
view and do,
Mm.
use the menu rather
She's
than.
absolutely crazy. I mean, I've got a crappy camera. And she's got
Yeah,
a
just
really good
control
one.
A.
I just got a
Just try a view and I think you can just
And she
literally
wrote
go.
about, in fact, she can't take them the photos. You know, she's
Oh,
so anyway, that's, she's really busy, so she's got something like that.
no, oh, why isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's all good.
Okay, so oh,
With a few entries.
Yes, thanks, Lucy, please.
it's all should be on.
Lights? Lights on?
I'm totally playing quite
Run
here.
through, this is the sets subject.
Still taking photos?
Oh,
With what?
He's got
Colours
a
are fun.
Canon, like a G series, like a G12 or 15 or something, and he's a
Am I
Nikon.
supposed to be watching these for comments or something?
This is a
But
quick
he's owned everything.
run through.
Just run
And he's
the
donated a
okay.
lot to the museum and stuff like nice. Like he brought stuff in and showed it to me. It's like leather case, red velvet interior, just full of lights. It's like,
Excuse me, Colin, I think this is very vivid.
it's pretty vivid.
So.
I can do something about that.
Yeah.
Well, you can guess the theme, can't you?
Yeah.
Can you pause it just for a minute?
I'll just escape out of it.
Okay, so I'm just going to go.
But I know my photos didn't look like they should.
Mine needed it. Okay, so we go picture, and then we go picture mode is vivid. So we're going to go standard, and then out. And then all yours.
Okay, so. Do you want to start
Want some
judging?
lights out?
Do you want another quick run through? We'll do a quick run through again.
Do you want to judge the photos, or shall I? Do you want to judge the photos, or shall I judge them?
Or you
I'll judge them, and you just watch.
The
It'll
colour.
be interesting to have.
I downloaded my TV at home, so
Yes.
it's a little bit tested.
Yes.
Cinema looked exactly like my computer.
Really?
Yeah. But,
Well, we could just quickly try that. We'll try that once we do the quick run through. Have a look.
Oh.
What's that?
It's not a great. It's okay tally, but it's something we need to think about. Is a better tally at
Is
some
there
stage.
something
We'll
we can
try
change?
cinema once we've gone around. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, because I think we did try cinema once.
Okay, so. Do you want to start
It
judging?
might change whether we're this time of year or whether it's middle of summer.
Should we turn some lights off?
I'll just
Do
we
you want
will.
them on, or what do you want?
Definitely want them off, but if I could just do this first. So let's just try picture mode. The call is cinema.
Okay.
I don't know, I just thought it might be.
It looks nice.
As long as it's not just your photos that look better.
I just did testing with my computer and TV.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Is it a Mac? Mac
Yeah,
or?
yeah.
Okay, cool. So the subject is autumn. Man, I haven't judged for a couple of months. That's a great shot. Nice out of focus background as well. And of course, that's the theme for next month, bokeh or good blur. Probably when we do do bokeh, you don't just want to be out of focus, you want those little circles. That's that classic. When you think of bokeh, you think of all the little circles of light. But that's a great autumn shot. A little bit distracting, this thing coming down here into the shot, because I just want to see him. But I actually like the composition. I like him down in the corner there, and he's just surrounded in this luscious orange fruit. And I'll give that a highly commended. Autumn ivy. Oh, it's a lovely simple photo. Simple photos always work so well. It's great actually. It's quite a juxtaposition having all that colour going over the black. Very, very different. I don't think you'll ever see another photo like it. Great vibrant colour, and I think they'll give it honours. That's good. Very simple and nice. Oh, good on you. Ooh, autumn reflections. Gee, that's cracking. Yep, nothing wrong with that. I mean, what do you say to that? Great use of a photo. I'm just sort of imagining what it looked like on its own. It's amazing what you can do with a photo when you really have a play with it.
I mean, the way if I sit there.
I think that's a great photo. There's not a lot I could say about it. Great use of whatever software created it. That's another honours. Oh, good idea. No, I can't see nothing. Hang about. If you guys don't mind. These might end up on YouTube. Yeah, they might end up on YouTube. Righto. What was the title, please?
Morning Glory.
Morning Glory, thank you. It's great if you see a shot like this, to go and get the photo. Like Don said, sometimes you see a photo, you want to try different times of the day. I would have liked to have seen this when it was either all in shadow or none in shadow, so that you could get that consistent exposure. Just a little bit distracting, but it's actually a nice photo that's been found, and I'm going to give that a merit. It's actually, I love the framing. The framing, what was really good about it, was just that different exposure took away from it. One man's rubbish. Oh, there's a bird on there, I didn't even notice. Okay. Yeah, it's quite a fun little photo actually. A little bit away from the theme of autumn for me, though for some people that might actually be autumn. You know, autumn's not
Does
just...
rubbish come in handy sometimes?
Yeah. and I'm just going to mark it down because it's a bit away from me, and saying that I'm sure they had something in mind, so I'm going to give it a merit. Yeah. But you know,
Nesting time.
yeah, see?
Autumn.
Yeah, sorry. And I totally get that. You know, there is more to autumn
So
than
you
autumn
can't wait
leaves.
now that you understand.
Yeah. So, Nature's Carpet. I mean, it's absolutely classic, actually. That's a good little photo. And I just wish that one leaf in the middle was bright red rather than yellow, just so that really... So, because almost, if that wasn't there, the whole thing would be the subject. But because it's there, it becomes the subject. But it's still a very nice photo, and I give it highly commended. Ooh, it's luscious. So ginkgo sunshine. Yeah, that's a different take on it. You know, it doesn't have to be from the Northern Hemisphere. I don't know where they come from.
Ginkgos are in New Zealand.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because even, you know, all those other ones are all Northern Hemisphere trees. So yeah, it's a great shot, something different which I like. And it's a nice photo. Look at the little bits of green just splashing in there. That really adds to it. And there's only two colours. Nice and simple. Great exposure, nice focus. I'm going to give it a highly commended. It's Vivian Pass. Very nice. Oh, hang on. Ooh, that's nice. Different take on it. That's a brown leaf, not an orange. Yeah, nicely done. Yep, nicely off to the side.
Is that what that Bico thing that we're talking about?
sort of is.
Yeah, that's totally bokeh actually.
Bokeh,
And that's the
bokeh.
hard thing, having bokeh as a theme. Usually bokeh is everything but the subject. Okay, today we've got Don Worsnop, a real photographer. He's been a photographer his whole life. He was born in 1926. And Don's going to talk to you now about photography. So Don, tell us about your career.
Well, it started off on the farm in the 1930s when I was still going to primary school. I had to walk home 2 miles, and then Mum, when I changed my clothes in the winter time, I'd put them on some old clothes and a raincoat, and the trailer or the sledge was left with hay on it, ready for me to harness up a horse and take it out and spread it in another paddock. And that took me, when I walked home from the Waby school, 2 miles to do that in the winters, because Dad was away on building jobs to try and get a little bit of money in the Depression days.
Yep.
And that's how we scratched through on farming. And in the early days, then it got a little bit better, and World War II came along, and we weren't involved with that, but things started to pick up. We started to get a better price for butterfat, and we had our first tractor for a little while, a couple of years, and then we wanted to do some contracting, and I had to drive the tractor around. The first baler we had, we towed it around, parked it where the hay was, and then they'd fork the hay up, loose hay up on. So during the war years we still had to keep the farm going and that, and then when things got better after the war there, we started contracting with tractors. We had to buy a bigger tractor, and then we bought, after the stationary baler, which we used for a couple of years, we found that a self-pickup and self-feeding and self-tying baler was the thing, and we covered areas all around Wellsford, Topanic, Mangawai, Tomerata, Warkworth, Matakana, over Towerhorn, Kuiper Flats, with these balers, and they really changed the days of stacking hay and that. So it kept us busy for some years. But then when I started running around with this hay baling, I bought my first camera, and I'd see seams and look when I was travelling around, and what I would do was look at it and then decide on what lighting it wanted and where to take it from. So then I'd pick the time and lighting to go back and get these photos. One of the other things that started me off too, when I showed some of these picture photos of seams, they sort of liked them very much, and 1 or 2 farmers saw them, and they said, "Oh, I've got a pet Jersey bull over these won prizes. Can you take photos of him?"
So okay, we go out in the paddock and he talked to his bull and get him standing exactly right. And I'd take photos of it, and as the photos were so good, they liked them very much. And I did quite a few of those with what we call show cattle. And then of course, because they looked all right, well, what about doing something with the kids? So we'd line up the kids and take those photos, and they were happy with them. And what we have to realise was, all through the war years, 5 years, you could only buy about one film of Kodak film. That's all you could, because the war people were swallowing up all the film. So photos were not very common during the war years, because nobody had there was not many professionals doing it. So that's, once I took a few good kiddies photos, it became family, and in 1952 I did my first wedding photos, and soon after that was another lot, and then it just sort of kept on going up. And of course I changed my gear as things went, and then when I got married I took over the family farm and sort of forgot about photography a little while, but anyway, some time afterwards I got called to go out again, and I had the chance to do it, so I started doing a bit more work. And I always looked out for photos for myself when I was travelling around, and sometimes I'd see places which could make a good photo, and what I would do is look at it and no, the lighting's no good. So I'd remember where that place was and remember what lighting I wanted to have for it to take the photo. And that's what I did. I'd travel sometimes several miles to some places to go back when the light is right for that scene.
Very good advice.
Sometimes, particularly for waterfall, you've seen that nice ones I've had,
yes,
with a nice feathered screen coming down.
Yep.
And there's a lot of things in doing scenery work, is to keep your eyes open during the day, and if you think that, and have a good look at it and decide what lighting is required for it to get the best of the shot. So that's one of the things I learnt to do. And if you're wanting landscape photos, you should really, when you see the place, decide where the light should be coming from, whether it's morning sunlight or afternoon or late afternoon, so the sun just crosses the top of the hills. And just, my first camera was a 120 camera by Ensign in England, which came out soon after World War II days, and very basic. It was good quality camera with a high quality lens on it, and it took 120 film where you could put either 12 or 8 on one roll of film. But the focusing on the lens was manual, and we couldn't measure the distance with the camera to the subject to the camera, so we had to measure it or guess it. Later on I bought a Linhol, which was a professional photographer's camera. It cost me several $100, 3 lenses and telephoto wide angle and a standard lens. It also took 6 double dark slides for cut film and plates, and it also had interchangeable roll film holders. This was a very efficient camera and kept me going for years. Is it still going?
Yep.
Yeah. So then of course times advance, technology changes, and we got onto through the lens metering cameras in 35mm cameras and all that sort of thing. And I used a number of Leica cameras in the first years of the doing candid stuff, and in those early days with the Leica cameras I could take photos of people dancing on the dance floor. I'd walk around on the dance floor with this high speed light flash on it, which had a flash duration of 1/5000th of a second. And when I saw a couple just swing around at the right position, I'd just fire the shutter while they were dancing, and everything was stopped, frozen. And I sold many of those photos as a game, because people didn't have many photos in those days, and they, with a high-speed flash, they came out so crystal clear on 35mm film. And all through the days before we got colour film, I used to buy all my 35mm black and white film in 400-foot reels, and we'd load our cassettes with those, and that kept the price down. And when we did sports photos out in the country or shows at Warkworth, Welsford, Kaiwaka or anywhere, we would walk around with a pack of cards and a camera, photograph children on swings and merry-go-rounds. And these photos, then when they were taken, we gave them a card which was numbered, and they could take the card into our place, and we could find the negative and have a print done. So that's how a lot of that was done. And also there were, in the cities, there was a lot of people went on footpaths, snapping people on the footpath, walking to them. They'd snap them and then hand these numbered cards out, and you could send that card back and get the right photo. So that was one of the things that sort of helped us keep going in the early days. Once my black and white work was done, I didn't do very much then, because once colour came in as a regular filming, black and white went out. But I have used an awful lot of black and white film, and some years, sometimes when only black and white photos were required, and I